Welcome to Smalltalk Daily for Monday, May 17th, 2010. This morning we're going to add some menu options to our simple blog server. So this is what we had it looking like when we left off last week. Let's push this aside a bit and we're going to go back to the code. What we're going to do here is we're going to go back to Seaside blog and we're going to start adding our menu items. So we want to be able to filter the blog posts, whether they're today's posts or all posts. We could add other filter options as well, but that's what we're going to do just as an example. We're going to go to blog menu UI. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an instance variable. Now to do that, we add entries in here into this instance variable list, and we just hit Control S to compile that. And now we want to initialize it. Now entries is going to be a collection. This will become obvious why this is the case in a few minutes. But the reason for that is that it's going to be a list or a collection of all the menu options. So we're just going to do that. And now what we need to do is we need to factor out the menu creations. We're going to go back to blog root UI where the menus are going to be displayed. Ultimately, here we have blog menu UI new being created. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this initialize method. We're going to refactor it so that it looks like this. So I'm going to paste this code in. And that's what we get, initialize menu component. It's going to tell us this is new because we haven't written that yet. So we have to go ahead and write that. So I'm going to go grab that off a little workspace I have, paste that in, show you that. So what this is doing is a couple of things. All posts with action and today's post with action. Let me just precede that. And precede that. It's telling me that those methods, add entry and today's post, don't exist. So we have to add all those methods. So that's why it's giving me those various warnings. But here we're adding an entry and adding an entry. So we have to add that method into blog menu UI. So that's where we have to go next, over here. And we'll have this method here. So let's just put this in here. And it probably should be categorized better, but we'll leave that alone. And I'm going to just take this self out because it turns out I've got direct access to the variable instead of messaging. So we'll have entries add, and we're adding an association here. So what we're saying is that we have a label with an action block. So every time that label is selected, the action block will execute. So we go back to blog root UI and take a look at that, where we're initializing the menu component. So we have the menu option and string. And it could be some kind of message catalog lookup. We're not getting into that right now. And we have an action that'll fire whenever we select that menu action. Now finally we have to go to menu UI. You notice that there was no way to render that menu yet because in menu UI we have no rendering code. So let's add rendering. And let's go ahead and put in this render content on. And again we'll get rid of that. So we'll iterate over all the entries and put in an anchor. So we have a callback for each anchor, and the key is the action, the key being that block I put in there, and it's separated by a space. So we have that. And what that'll do is render our menu for us whenever we invoke the root. What that'll do is render the menu for us whenever we invoke the root UI, because that root UI has two children, the blog list and the blog menu. Now what we have to do is go back to the blog list UI and add some code. What I'm going to do is pause this for a minute, put in all that code, and then explain it. Okay, so what I've done here is I put in a filter block instance variable so that we can have our filter changeable based on the menu pick. And what I've done is gone in here and added some actions. So I have the filter block set to all posts, so storage default posts to get all of them, or filter it based on the day. So here we just have a filtering with a select block. So those are our two actions. And then finally what we need to do is we need to go back to the blog root UI and hook this stuff up. So what we've done is add analogous methods into blog root UI. So whenever we select all posts from the menu, it tells the list component, go ahead and set the all post filter. And when we select today's post, it tells the list component, set today's post filter. So it just invokes that menu action down to the appropriate component. And then finally, this should almost work. Let's go up here and we'll do Seaside, open browser on server. And let's bring this into the view. And you see that the menu should render, but nothing's going to happen. I added a post this morning just by pushing this out. So let's go ahead and hit today's post. And you see nothing happens. The menu invoked, but nothing happened. Now there's a reason for that. Let's push that out of the way. And it turns out that the reason nothing is happening is that if we go into blog list UI and we look at our rendering code, so render content on, it's still just rendering each and every post. We need to change this so that it renders the filtering posts. So let's go ahead and make that modification. So the only change we had to make is we had to change this line here. Post gets filter block value instead of storage default posts. So instead of getting all posts, we just get the filter block posts. So we accept that, and now that'll return back whatever is appropriate based on the currently set filter, and then we'll render that. So let's go back to our browser and take a look at that. Let's go up here. All posts should be the same as we're looking at now, and today's post should be just today. So you see it's actually working. All posts, today's posts. So it's doing exactly what we wanted, and we've set this all up so that it works nicely. Now there's one other piece of infrastructure you really need to add, and I've got this in the code here. I'll take a look at it here in Blog Root UI. It's under hooks. I've got this method called children. And what this does is it tells the root component what all the child components are. So I've told it it's an array with my list component and my menu component. And all that's there for is for infrastructure purposes for Seaside to be able to go ahead and identify what all the things that should be tracked as far as the history goes. So that's being tracked, and this kind of information is being passed back and forth through the URL. Now you need to add that to get this all to work properly. But that's really all there is to it. You notice that this all works pretty nicely now. We've got our two child components, and they're working exactly the way we want them to. And filtering our post, and we've got a menu working. Now it doesn't look pretty, but it works, and if I had somebody that knew some style, I could make it look pretty. But that's about it for today. Until next time, have fun with Smalltalk.